Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and in this video we go over some of the boss guides from Togc back in the day. This was one afternoon on my Twitch channel, which I've linked below. I do stuff like this all the time, so come by and say hi if you're interested in seeing more content like this. Also, I'll be releasing boss guides for Togc like I did with Old War, so if you're interested in those, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The button is down there somewhere, you'll find it. Okay, enjoy the video. All right, here we go. This first boss is the heroic Northrend beasts. In this series, we're only going to be talking about the heroic 25-man guides. Remember that you cannot wipe if you want the cloaks. And so, yeah, Isaac is saying you also can only wipe up to 5 times to get all of your tier gear. And you really want that 258 tier gear also. So make sure that you have your guides ready to go. All right, here we go. The heroic Northrend beasts. This is the first of 5 bosses. Slow start.
Hello and welcome to the Tankspot Crusaders Colosseum
It's a little low, right? She's a little low.
Raid Guide. My name is Eliana, and in this video I'll go over the strategy that we use for the heroic 25-man version of Northrend beasts. The first encounter in the heroic trial of the Crusader.
Turn it up. Turn it up. All right, I'm gonna turn it up, and I'll turn me up a little bit too.
Raid instance.
Is that better?
If you would like more information or would like to learn more about downloading this movie, click more info on the movie information box on YouTube to head directly to Tankspot. Also, be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button to the right. You will be automatically notified as we release movies that way.
So she's gonna get into it, but Northrend Beast is actually 3 separate bosses. It's 3 separate encounters, one after another, and that's the first boss. And at the end, you get the loot at the very end. None of the other bosses drop loot. Yeah, so in TOGC, you have 50 total possible wipes before you cannot continue the bosses. They will not spawn after 50 wipes. And each wipe lowers the amount of loot you get in the chest at the end of the dungeon, or at the end of the raid. So make sure that you are planning on not wiping. I know that sounds stupid, but you just need to do a lot of homework because you're not going to have a ton of wiggle room if you want all of the loot. 5 to 10 wipes. Yeah, you know what I mean. We can talk about it, but yeah. Here we go.
In the heroic Northrend Beasts encounter, you won't be faced with any brand new abilities, but you are instead presented with a very tight enrage timer of approximately 520 seconds, or 8.7 minutes, as well as very hefty damage increases. Additionally, every mod.
So this video is it's done from the perspective of having watched the normal boss guide, which we're not going to do. We're just going to go straight into the heroic.
Up in the encounter, including snowballs, gain around 30% more health. You fight the same enemies as on normal mode in all 3 phases, but while a new enemy only appears after you defeat the last one on normal mode, they're on a set spawn timer in the heroic version. Approximately 150 seconds after engaging the event, Acid Wand Dradscale will spawn, and 340 seconds after engaging the event, Ice Howl joins the fight. This is a very tight time limit, and you may have to be prepared to pick up new incoming enemies while finishing off the prior beast.
So she's saying that each boss you have a certain amount of time to kill it, and she's saying that it's going to be a pretty tight window for you to kill it for the next one to come out. If I'm perfectly honest with you, that's not going to be a thing for us. You very likely will blow these the fuck up, and then once one dies, the next one will spawn. So I wouldn't worry about it. You're not going to be fighting 2 of these at the same time unless something goes catastrophically wrong.
First, let's talk about the changes to the Gormork portion of the encounter. The most dangerous part about Gormork is the extreme amounts of tank damage that he deals. He will use his Impale ability every 10 seconds on the highest threat target. Impale spell now deals 150% weapon damage and puts a 5k bleed on the target that ticks every 2 seconds for 45 seconds. This effect stacks, and it's highly dangerous to have tanks take more than 2 stacks of the debuff. To avoid incredible damage spikes, it's advised to use a 3 tank rotation with a new tank taunting every 29 seconds. Alternatively, it's doable to take 2 tanks, have them take 3 stacks, and use Blessing of Protection on them after the other one taunts. This gives you room to take another DPS class, but greatly increases the chances of tank deaths. Finding a way to reliably deal with impale stacks is the most important part about Phase 1. Killing snowballs as quickly as possible is also...
Okay, so real quick. There's a bleeding debuff on the tanks. It does 150% weapon damage and causes a bleed that stacks. So she's saying that you could bop the bleed off after a tank swap. I don't think you're really going to have to worry too much about the bleed. Personally, I think it's probably going to be not a big deal, and you definitely will not use more than 2 tanks. Maybe the bop will be a thing, but it'll be whatever. I wonder if stone form works. There's no way that it does, right? Does this feel like watching your ancestors play? A little bit, yeah. It could very well be a solo tank. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, if stone form is bis, and you start seeing dwarves tanking this, I mean, that would be insanity. I can't imagine. But yeah, stone form's great. Okay, so that's that. He also does something called Staggering Stomp, which deals a buttload of damage to everybody within 15 yards to interrupt spellcasting. So if you're a caster, you have to be at range. So it'll silence you. And then you'll see in a second she's explaining.
Utmost importance. They effectively prevent any caster they attach to from casting any non-instant spell, and you won't really have any extra time to kill them on the phase change, so getting rid of them as they spawn seems the smartest way to deal with them. Lastly, Staggering Stomp now hits for approximately 12,000 damage instead of 9,000.
Okay, so she didn't really go over it, but there's these things called Snowballed Vassals. And every 20%, they jump off of Gormok's back and will attach to a player. Kind of like, face huggers or whatever. They prevent you from casting. They'll interrupt your cast. So you need to cast instants, which is pretty fucking annoying. And if you get unlucky, you will find yourself with a lot of your healers getting these on you. For the disc, it's not that big a deal, but whatever. There's probably going to be strategies that you just ignore them and you kill them on the transition or whatever. But this is really going to piss off some of your casters who get it, because they're going to be like, my fucking parse. This is the Kolagarn grabs you, ruining your parse aspect of it. Generally, you're supposed to turn and kill them as they spawn, but we'll see what happens. It's not that big a deal.
And the snowballs firebombs deal 8,000 damage per second instead of 6,000. Additionally, they place a dot on you that ticks for 2,000 every 2 seconds for 20 seconds.
All right, so that's Gormok. That's the very first one. He's not going to be hard. I hate to break it to you, even on heroic, he's not going to be hard. There's going to be very few people struggling with him. All right, the next one is Acid Maw and Dreadscale. They're 2 big fucks. They each have a school of elemental damage that they kind of focus on. One is fire and one is nature. 2 Jormungers. Do you think these will be able to be stacked and cleaved using the wall for the knockback? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I have a feeling it's probably yes eventually, maybe not right off the rip, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty trivial. They do a couple things that are kind of gnarly. We'll just let her talk about it.
After 150 seconds, Acid Maw and Dreadscale will join the fight. Have tanks ready to...
150 seconds is 2.5 minutes. There's zero chance you're fighting him for 2.5 minutes. I'm sorry. That is a metric fuck ton of time. Zero chance.
Even if you're still working on Gormok. The same general buffs apply to those two, and with a tight enrage timer, it's important that this phase is executed correctly and you don't lose any raid members. Your raid needs to make sure never to stand in front of a worm. Their frontal abilities hit a lot harder and can easily minute death, especially for a caster. To properly minimize damage and chaos from paralytic toxin and burning bile, it's advised that every raid member pulls up their range frame and
I feel like we should be doing the normal boss guides instead of these. Togc Tankspot, Northrend, Beasts, normal. This is 10 man. I don't know if they have it. Whatever, we'll do the 10 man.
Hi, I'm Lore from...
It's lore.
The final ability to watch for in this phase is an AoE stun.
All right.
Once Gormok has been defeated, you'll move on to phase 2 and be faced with not one, but 2 Jurmagars, Dreadscale and Acid Maw.
There's the
At
vassals.
the start of the phase, Dreadscale will be on the surface and mobile, while Acid Maw will poke up from underground and be stuck in place. Both of these have an AoE breath ability, so each will need to be tanked and pointed away from the raid. Dreadscale's primary ability, aside from his breath attack, is a debuff called Burning Bile. He can apply it through 2 methods, a direct melee attack on the tank and a randomly targeted AoE Molten Spew that will hit its target and anyone standing nearby. Burning Bile will deal fire damage to the player affected by it, as well as any nearby raid members, similar to light bombs from the XT002 encounter, so it's important for everyone to stay as spread out as possible. Meanwhile, Acid Maw will be applying his own debuff called
Okay, hold on. Let's go back. So there's Burning Bite. It does a bunch of damage to an enemy and then coats them with Burning Bile, which does, it's like a Searing Light. It's a Searing Light situation. So you get that debuff on XT and you run out of the raid. That's all it is. So if you get it, you got to run out.
Paralytic Toxin in a similar fashion through direct attacks on the tank and a randomly targeted AoE attack.
Paralytic Toxin.
Paralytic Toxin deals nature damage over time and applies a movement slowing effect that increases with every tick. The only way to remove Paralytic Toxin is to get hit by the AoE effect of Burning Bile. Players with Burning Bile or Paralytic Toxin will need to work together to remove it. However,
So does that make sense? One of them puts a debuff on you that burns everyone around you, and another one puts a poison on you that slows you, that eventually will freeze you. And the only way to get rid of that is to get burned by the other guy's bite. So it's just, and then the things fall off. Does that make sense? Kind of a cool little mechanic.
be aware that in the early stages of the fight, Dreadscale's tank will be the only player with Burning Bile active. Since Dreadscale needs to stay pointed away from the raid, players with Paralytic Toxin will need to move to the tank on their own.
Sure.
Every so often, Dreadscale and Acid Maw will switch places. Whichever Jurmengar was previously underground will now be on the surface, and vice versa. This adds a little confusion, but as long as you let the tanks pick their targets back up, it's very easy to deal with. Also note that Acid Maw will be spawning poison clouds similar to those seen in the Grobulus encounter underneath whichever Jurmengar is on the surface. Just keep that one moving and stay out of them.
Poison clouds easy.
In this video, we started DPS on Dreadscale and switched to Acid Maw when Dreadscale was low. This is because we were going for the not one but two Jurmengar's achievement. However, this does add a little bit more complexity to the fight. The easiest way to finish this phase is to burn down Acid Maw first and then Dreadscale afterward. Be aware though that once Acid Maw is dead, Dreadscale will enrage and deal 50% more damage. Also note that due to the large amounts of fire and nature damage being thrown around, both fire and nature resistance auras or totems are very helpful here.
So you kind of want to kill them at the same time because when one dies, the other one enrages. So cleaving is definitely a thing. That's a good point. Sorry, that's a good point, Henry. Thank you. So I can almost guarantee you there will be a strategy that you cleave the hell out of these two guys, and it will be the strategy that you go with long term. In the beginning, like a lot of stuff in Old War, you may not be pushing this right away until you guys get a little bit more comfortable. But long term, it's very likely that you will be just cleaving the hell out of them. There's the enrage, and down they go. All right, so that's the second boss of this event, this first encounter. Now there's the third one. I'm pretty sure this guy's the easiest.
After the 2 Jormungandrs are defeated, you'll enter the third and final phase and be faced with Ice Howl, a massive yeti. Ice Howl has 3 key abilities. The first is an AoE whirl that does a small amount of physical damage and knocks back everyone in melee range. The second is a randomly targeted Arctic breath that freezes everyone in a cone and deals a large amount of frost damage to each over 5 seconds. This will need to be healed through, and a frost resistance aura or totem can help ease the load a bit.
Okay, so this boss is going to expose the people who have very bad reaction times, but he has that Arctic breath, which turns and cones for 15k, 20k over 5 seconds. Not that bad. And then he also does what is it? Whirl, which does a physical damage to everyone around him and knocks them back. So he looks like he uses them in concert with each other. Now his main mechanic,
most important of Ice Howl's abilities, is his massive crash ferocious charge combo. He'll begin by jumping into the middle of the room.
Okay, so he does this, and then he does this,
and knocking everyone to the walls where you'll be stunned.
Everybody gets knocked back.
Pick a raid member,
then he looks at somebody, and at this point, your back's against the wall, right? And he's gonna come sprinting towards you.
Jump back to charge. Just as he jumps back, the stun will wear off, and everyone will be given a temporary run speed buff. You'll need to use that.
So you want to bait him like a fucking matador, so that he hits the wall behind you and not you, because if he hits you, you get one shot.
Buff to run out of his way quickly, as he'll kill anyone that he comes into contact with. If no one gets hit, he'll crash into the wall and not only stun himself for a few seconds, but take increased damage as well. No threat is generated while he's stunned, so take advantage of this time to burn him down. As long as everyone can dodge his charge, Ice Howl is fairly simple and mostly just a matter of keeping everyone alive through his whirl and Arctic breath.
So that's Ice Howl. You're gonna find that the same people keep dying to this over and over and over again. And you're gonna be frustrated with them. And you're gonna have to learn patience, and that's gonna be okay. Yeah, if you die, if you do get hit by it, he enrages, so you can't get hit by it. Because there's the breath, he picks a side and he breaths. Here comes the knockback. So now he's gonna pick somebody, and you're looking. He's looking not at this guy, but he's looking kind of close, so you're gonna run away. Boom. That is not hard. That is not hard. I'm telling you. That is not hard.
Although there's ultimately a lot of things to learn and deal with, each phase of the Northrend Beast encounter is fairly straightforward. As always, if you'd like to know more about this or any other encounter, including the 25-man version, check the Project Marmot forums at tankspot.com.
I wonder if there will be a way to bait
YouTube,
the frost breath or the Arctic breath away from most of the raid. Because you want to get as few people hit by it as possible. Alright. That's the first boss. That's called Northrend Beasts. You should spread generally, yes. I'm wondering just if you can, avoid it. Alright, so that's the first boss. We're already 20% through the instance. Now we're going to do Lord Jaraxxus. Lord Jaraxxus of the famous You Face Jaraxxus, heir to Lord of the Burning Legion. Everyone's favorite. Guys, by the way, if you're new to the stream, hi, I'm Jordy. Appreciate it a lot. Hit me with a follow if you haven't. If you're sitting on a Prime sub, consider throwing it. Thank you a bunch. All right, here we go. Jaraxxus.
Welcome back to the Tankspot Crusaders Coliseum Raid Guide. This is Togc, and this video will go over
Togc. This crew is legendary.
strategy for Lord Jaraxxus, the second boss in the Crusaders Coliseum. If you'd like more information, or would like to learn more about downloading this movie,
His
click
UI
more
is
info
not.
on the movie information box on
His
YouTube.
UI is...
Twitch Prime right now. Thank you.
I mean, this guy's UI is pretty ahead of its time right now, dude. Like, this is not... He's got his damage meter in the bottom right. This UI is pretty good, in my opinion. Like, you could see this UI today and be like, oh, yeah, see. Looks kind of similar to mine.
Yeah. He's Scarabord. Oh,
Same UI as Sarth? Yeah, exactly. Murderlock, thank you, man.
You face Jaraxxus. You face Jaraxxus.
Jaraxxus. Bags at the top? Yeah, I don't think you need these, but it's fine.
YouTube to head directly to Tankspot. Also, be sure to subscribe by clicking the
It's a blood
subscribe button
decay.
on the right so you'll automatically be notified as we release movies. Lord Jaraxxus is a controlled DPS burn. DPS and
Now this is egregious. This is awful. Look at this.
Jaraxxus is secondary to proper DPS on the ads, and you'll want to control the Legion Inferno so you don't have fire everywhere. Healing also...
I'm in the Matrix. I'm literally in the Matrix. This, I'm reading it. Fucking Keanu up in here.
becomes extremely important on this fight, as you need to get the Incinerate Flesh debuff off before that person blows up the raid.
Alright, Incinerate Flesh debuff.
The raid composition we used had 2 tanks, one on Jaraxxus and one for his ads, and 5 healers. There is a lot of fire damage going around on this fight. A fire resistance aura or totem is very useful here. When you start the encounter, you want to tank him in the middle of the room and keep the raid spread out at least 10 yards apart so you don't spread Fell Lightning.
Let's ignore the UI.
Fell Lightning works exactly like Chain
Okay, so there's this.
Lightning. However, the damage doesn't change each time it jumps, and it will affect a maximum of 5 targets.
Don't look at this.
Focus on Jaraxxus at first, and assign people to interrupt his Fell Fireball.
So he summons Mistress of Pain, which we're all familiar with.
Fireball will be cast on the tank at regular
Cast
intervals, and it
Fireball.
will do about 22 to 23k damage
And
up
it
front.
applies a
and
dot.
it will tick for over 8,000 damage
So
per
it
second.
needs to get dispelled.
This can be dispelled. He will also randomly target a player with Legion Flames. Legion Flames is a debuff that deals about 4,000
not a
damage per
blood
second
decay?
and will leave a fire at your feet. There are 2 ways to deal with this.
No, he's a
You can
is he tanking and he's a tanking Frost decay? He's Frost? Alright, well whatever. He's tanking.
either stand in one spot and either be healed through it
I'm
and
where
keep the
he's
fire
Frost
one
for
spot,
tanking, but
or those that are affected by it can run to the outside of the room. For a few
Pre-DK
seconds, they
nerf?
will leave
Okay.
a trail of fire behind. This fire will also deal about 4,000
so there's these volcanoes, it summons infernals, and there are fire. So you're gonna hate the people that are dropping fire off in the wrong area. Now, fortunately, the fire's not actually that huge of a thing, but yeah, these fucking volcanoes, I hated Supremus. I hated him. That was my least favorite boss in BT. I didn't really like BT as a raid to begin with, but Supremus sucked.
damage per second for those that stand in it.
There's the volcanoes, and the volcanoes summon infernals. They gotta get tanked.
The other random ability that Jaraxxus will use is Incinerate Flesh. Incinerate Flesh is cast on a random target and absorbs the next 70,000 healing that you receive and reduces the damage you deal by 50%.
I guess the volcanoes aren't summoning,
if you
they're
don't
just,
receive
he's just dropping
70,000 healing in the
infernals.
next 15
Look at this
seconds,
massive
you will
thing on
explode
my
and will
ass.
deal over
Okay, so Incinerate Flesh is super important for the healers. It's a dot. It's a debuff that is applied to you that absorbs all of the healing done to you until you do enough of it to get it to fall off. So in normal, at least, it's 75k, which is not that much. In heroic, it might be more. So this is very much a Holy Pally situation. Disc is not going to be very good at it. One Holy Light, 75k. It's 15 seconds. It's not going to be hard to do. You just put Beacon on the tank and then you fucking Holy Light into the person. But yeah, is he not using any consume survived food? It looks like he doesn't have a flask. I don't know. Oh no, his mechanics. Yeah, no, that's a fair issue.
3,000 damage per second for 5 seconds to all friendly targets.
So there's Incinerate Flesh. He's got Beacon on him.
Jaraxxus also gains a buff called Nether Power. It increases the magic damage he deals by 20%. This buff can be spell stolen by mages and should be done whenever possible to minimize fell lightning and fell fireball damage.
What does that debuff do that they was talking about? Where is it? Where is it? Let's look. Face Jaraxxus. Eredor Lord of the Burning. Fell Lightning strikes an enemy with Legion Lightning, dealing X damage, arcs up to Y targets. Touch of Jaraxxus. Deals 4,000 shadow damage every second for 12 seconds. Nearby players are hit by Curse of the Nether, dealing 4,000 shadow damage every second for 15 seconds. Okay. And then increases damage by 20%. Rune Master Steel. Okay, so it's a magic. Okay, Nether Power. Magical self buff on Jaraxxus increases magic damage dealt by 20% per stack. So yeah, you just yoink it. So someone's... Are they gonna normalize it so that you can't get, like... Because, like, then one mage could parse on this fight, and all the other mages won't be able to. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Throughout the encounter, he'll spawn 2 types of ads. The first type of ad is
Raise
a
the
Mistress of
spell
Pain,
seal,
and one will spawn from a portal. The ad tank needs to pick this up immediately, and the non-interrupter DPS needs to burn them down.
So they're grabbing these
They have
ads.
a high damage attack that pierces armor, and a spinning pain spike where the Mistress of Pain randomly targets a player in the raid and hits them for about 50% of their health.
I bet you this is a one tank fight. I bet you that you're going to be able to tank him and these things pretty easily, and you just one tank it. He dipped low here. He dipped real low. What did he get hit by? Can't see. He got hit hard here. The Infernals melt.
The second type of ads are Infernals, and they are spawned from the volcanoes. Each volcano will spawn about 3 to 4 Infernals, and they must be picked up by the ad tank. The ad tank picks up the Infernals and tries to keep it away from others, so the Infernal AoE doesn't hit any other players.
So the Infernal AoE
They
has
also
that
move Jaraxxus to keep them away from
fire
the melee. The range
damage
stay on the
aura.
Infernal, and the melee stand on Jaraxxus.
range on
The Infernals will also
Infernal,
randomly
melee
target a
on
player in the
Jaraxxus.
raid and attack them for about 6,000 damage, then go back to the ad tank.
There's the volcano. Got to get that out of that.
Overall,
You're
the
gonna get so
Jaraxxus
griefed by
encounter requires a
volcanoes.
bit of execution. Make sure that the
This
ads
seems
are picked
really
up
easy.
and taken down as soon as possible.
Personally.
Keep Legion Flames under control, and keep interrupting Fell Fireball. Also, make sure that Incinerate Flames is healed up as soon as possible. Good interrupts in Jaraxxus is a huge plus, as it will greatly reduce the burst damage on the tank throughout the encounter.
Good interrupts are a huge plus. Good interrupts are required. You should never get a fucking fireball off. And if you do, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna lose my shit on you.
Thanks for watching this movie. As always, feel free to ask questions or add suggestions either on
Boom.
YouTube or on the strategy thread on Tankspot.com.
This is a very easy fight.
Also, Tankspot donors can download all of these movies in high definition
movies,
directly
the
from our
movies.
servers. Click the second link in the movie information box to learn more.
All right, easy clap. That one is not something that I'm worried about.
Welcome back.
We don't want to watch Deathbringer Sourfang. I appreciate you though. All right, Twin Valks
Give
is not
Togc
next.
Twitch Prime right now. Thank you.
The buff that can be spellstolen by mages unaltered intentionally. Spell stealing costs a GCD and quite a lot of mana. It's one of the best way of dealing with Jaraxxus' buff. Plus, it only affects mages, but all of them equally, and it offers enough stacks for multiple mages from Shariva on Warcraft Logs, FYI. Yeah. Yeah. He has an enemy cast bar. It was on his thing. I mean, the fact that it costs a global, I don't know if is enough for me to say that it's not worth it to do. Right? It's like, who gives a fuck? Hard boss is going to be... Yeah, Paul, the faction champions is going to be... This might be the hardest boss. This boss is unique in that it is unlike any boss we've had up to this point. And it's going to take a lot of time for you to wrap your head around the fact that you can't just stand there and pump. Everyone's going to have a job on this fight, and it's going to be really important that you do your job, because randomly, if you don't, people are going to get fucking one shot, and that's not feasible. This is the Pug Destroyer, sure. There's going to be, so, like Crank just said, there's going to be a lot of times where it's like, oh, we got a pretty good opening. Everything's fine. They didn't do their thing, and it'll be fine. There'll be a lot of times where it's like, oh, they did a bunch of things at the same time, and we're fucked. Fortunately, on 25 man, as far as I'm mistaken, or as far as I know, if correct me if I'm wrong, the comp that you get is always the same. On 10 man, it's a random selection of classes that jump down. But on 25 man, it's all the same. So you'll always be able to predict on 25 man what you're going to get. Just a quick PvP here. There is some argument about whether or not resilience is worth it here. Just to have a bit of extra stam and some crit reduction. We'll see. My feeling is probably no, but we'll see. I don't know. Hard to know. Rare PvP trinket. Yeah, PvP trinket could be good here. Humans won't have to, but a lot of other classes will. You just don't want to get hit. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And will the Twitch drop event happen? I don't know.
Welcome back to the
I don't know if that's true.
CRUSADER's Coliseum Raid Guide. My name's Eliana, and in this video, I explain the strategy we used for the faction champions, the third encounter in the trial of the Crusader raid instance.
Also, DKs are incredibly good on this fight for doing a bunch of different shit. Chains of Ice, Death Grip are all really, really, really good.
We got a good
Jushi, thank you, man, for the Prime. The kill order is going to be a bit of an argument of whether you do this or whether you do that, but DKs are incredibly good at dealing with these mobs.
If you would like more information or would like to learn more about downloading this movie, click more info on the movie information.
So here's what it looks like. The mobs will drop down from the top, depending on your faction. It'll be Alliance or Horde, and you will have to fight them. And so you just want to make sure that you're not standing underneath them when they land, which won't be hard.
Information box on YouTube to head directly to Tankspot. Also, be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button to the right so you will be automatically notified as we release movies. In this fight, you face 10 NPCs of the opposing faction with approximately 2 million hit points each.
What is Skull Smasher Jenkins? Oh, that guy's name is Skull Smasher. I'm an idiot.
The setup presumably changes from raid ID to raid ID, but it seems consistent in that there are always 3 healers.
Okay.
There are 14 different NPCs in total.
14 different types of mobs, 10 total drops. So there is some RNG. Thank you, Eliana.
That you may end up fighting in any constellation, a DPS version of each class, and a healer version of each class that has a healing talent tree.
Alright, so if you notice, one guy ran in.
The general idea of this fight is very reminiscent of a larger scale arena fight or the third boss in Magister's Terrace. The NPCs work together like a PvP team and should be handled in a similar fashion. While you're facing up to 12 mobs altogether, that includes any possible pet you could get, they cannot be AoE'd down as they gain a buff that reduces damage done by AoEable.
So they bloodlust, they all have PvP trinkets, and they all cast spells in line with what they're represented as. So yeah, the FPS is great. One very common strategy is to have a warrior charge in and pop Intimidating Shout. Do you dare come back to Wrath and try it? I mean, I think you go for it. You charge in, you fear, and then they will all pop their trinkets, and then they're pretty much CCable, right? But you have to remember, it's important to get their PvP trinket off, because a lot of the time, you're gonna find, I'm kiting this guy, if he PvP trinkets right now, I'm dead. Like, you need to know that he's not gonna get to you. You know what I mean? So having that PvP trinket used is gonna be very important. Now, I wonder wonder if they can trinket again or not. Like, does it come back up off cooldown 2 minutes later? I wonder.
By 75%.
5-minute cooldown?
No normal threat mechanics are in effect. Melee NPCs seem to pick a target at random for a certain amount of time,
Hi.
and then move on to the next one, while
What?
the caster NPCs just pick random targets
It's
to dot up or damage. But abilities such as Taunt and
Morgan's-
Fade will make them drop their
Hold on, Morgan's home. We're doing a big thing. Doing a thing.
What's the thing?
Say hi to Morgan, guys.
You got a lot of you.
Yeah.
You sound like
I had some chips.
chicks. You're
Chicks.
sweaty.
I am sweaty. Everyone says hi. We'll cut this out of the video. You guys get the real Morgan and the real dog. And all of this.
Gosh. Oh, her breath is so
She really just licked the fuck out of your face, didn't she? All right. I bet if I know Morgan, it's nap time.
It's nap time.
I bet. IV time? No, we're not doing IV.
She's not that chunky.
The dog.
Svelte.
She's svelte, dude. She's a small 20 pounds. It's chill. It's a chill dog. Can we get down to business? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I know you're here. All right. No, Paul. She hates other dogs.
Not Morgan the dog.
So you run in and you AoE fear. They pop their trinkets, and then you can kind of get to business. A lot of the times, if these guys reach you, especially if you're a clothy, they're just gonna one-shot you. So you need to make sure that everything is taken into account. You'll assign people to CC certain mobs, and we're gonna figure out what the best way to do that is on PTR whenever that comes. I don't know when that'll be, but primarily everyone's gonna have a job, and then you're gonna burn the fuck out of one mob. And as soon as things start dying, everything gets crazy easy. Right? But in the beginning, the beginning is the hardest part because there's a bunch of people up and they're all doing different things. And so you want to kill stuff as fast as you can and then go from there. Banish your kill rogue. Yeah, translate. I don't know the answer. I just know you want to get it done fast. We'll see what Eliana says, but yeah.
their target temporarily. It's hard to present an incredibly detailed strategy for this fight, but I will give tips of all the things I've noticed that should prove quite useful. You should be aware that the NPCs will use most, if not all, of their class respective spells, especially crowd control ones. Examples are Blind, Entangling Roots, Cyclone, Wyvern Sting, Sheep, and Fears, including AoE Fears. The Paladins will use Hand of Sacrifice and Divine Shield. Have a Priest keep Mass Dispel ready. The Moonkin will use Treants on cooldown. The Warrior will use Blade Storm. If at all possible, stay away from him as best as you can, especially as a cloth wearer. He also breaks fears and uses Intimidating Shout. The Rogue will randomly focus on a target and burst it down while keeping Wounding Poison on. Its target will need extra healing. The Death Knight uses Chains of Ice, Army of the Dead, and Death Killing the Shaman's totems is incredibly helpful. The Warlock favors casting Unstable Affliction, which should be interrupted whenever possible. He also casts Curse of Agony and Corruption and Fear. Lots.
So she's just saying that everyone does their things. Yeah, have all of them. I might, but go for it. They're a little old, but just nuke them. You sub for the dog content. I appreciate that. So you're gonna want to pick a target and burn it. You're gonna want to do your things. This is where you're gonna find that someone's gonna accidentally whirlwind a sheep, and then it's gonna turn and one shot a healer, and then you're gonna lose your fucking shit. So the plan is to get Togc to make weak auras that announce, hey, you shouldn't have broken the CC, or hey, you do a thing. So, I mean, Togc's going to have a bunch of, like, idiots, standing in cloud type stuff, which will be great.
And lots of fear.
Fear is really, really good
casting
here.
Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, and even uses Dispersion when targeted. Any NPC that can dispel, will dispel.
The rogue's on the healer. This is terrible.
You want to mark the healers up before pulling and single target them down first. We put an interrupter on every healer, and their only task was to make
You'll find that a guild full of PvPers might find this fight pretty easy, but a guild full of PvEers and that only PvE might find it a little bit more difficult. It's a very much of an individual responsibility fight.
Make sure no heal gets off. To back this up and catch some other random interrupts, we had our rogue spam Fan of Knives with Throne specialization. Alternatively, you can choose to lock them out by CCing them, but PvP duration and diminishing returns are in effect. The Restoration Druid can and should be banished or otherwise controlled, as he'll mainly cast.
This is a fun fight. It's also absolutely obnoxious.
Since a couple of heals will probably go off either way, you should have someone keep Mortal Strike or Wound Poison on the current kill target.
Fanning Wound might be a good idea, just to get all that shit up. Mind Numbing with Fan could be good too. There are single targeting ones that we're not seeing.
The Warrior
at this
and Death
range.
Knight should be kited with movement speed reducing effects on them. Chains of Ice, Frost Nova, and Entangling Roots are most useful on those two. As mentioned, taunts work temporarily, so should any melee NPC
Why are they not running a
pick
Holy
cloth
Pally?
as a target, they should be taunted so the cloth
I don't know the
gets
answer
at
to
least a
that.
breather and can start kiting. But be aware that taunt diminishing returns are in full effect.
think Robot
so
Jones is a
to
Holy
space them
Pally.
out appropriately. The Warlock and Hunter pads have very low.
I actually think there's 7 healing. If you can believe it. Someone call Kanga.
Health, but they don't deal a lot of damage either. Whether you choose to kill them first or leave them up for last is up to you. We chose to ignore them as they weren't much of a nuisance for us.
So as things die, things get incredibly easy. Way fewer things to worry about. There's still like 6 mobs up, but they're doing a good job. Trance just spawned.
Dispels and cleanses of all kinds are extremely important. On our kill attempt, we had to get 300 cleanses combined. Aim to keep Druid and Priest Hots dispelled, as well as NPC cooldowns such as Hand of Protection, Bergskin, etc.
A beacon only used to heal if the heal landed. That would have been awful. That's awful.
Tanks are of very little use in this encounter, although the various interrupts protection warriors have make them an ideal choice for locking down a healer.
Prot Warrior.
While it is possible to use Resilience gear for this encounter, it seems that
You're
burst
watching a
DPS
Holy
is much
Priest
more
with
important.
Valen.
With 10 targets alive, it's close to impossible to keep 100% luck on every mob, so you want to aim to kill them faster than they heal. We did not have anyone use Resilience gear.
No resilience gear here.
Thanks for
Ellie showing
watching
your
this
Gills
movie.
Valley, nice.
As always, feel free to ask questions or add suggestions either on YouTube or in the strategy thread on tankspot.com. Also, Tankspot donors can download all of these movies in high definition directly from our servers. Click the second link in the movie information box to learn more.
I don't know line paste. Yeah, Resto Druid and Aliena is on top. All right, so this is going to be one of the fights that it's going to be really hard for me to make a boss guide for. I'll do it, but it's going to be a fucking headache. We'll see the best ways to go about doing it once we're on PTR, because we'll spend a lot of time working on it. But ideally, we're able to make this fight idiot-proof by assigning certain people to certain mobs and being like, okay, your job is to just lock this down, and that's your job. We'll see. Just repeat this video. Yeah, exactly. Jordy guide. Boom. I'm gonna skip the rest of this because it's not very interesting, but we're gonna get into Twin Valks now. Now, this is probably the most interesting fight in here.
Hi, I'm Lore from Tankspot.
It's
and
Lore.
welcome back to the Trial of the Crusader raid guide. In this video, I'll be discussing the Twin Valkyr, the 4th encounter.
This fight's
available in
really
the
cool.
Coliseum raid instance.
This is the first fight that I think that you'll want 2 tanks for. I guess you'll want 2 tanks for whatchamacallit also. For not Jaraxxus, but the worms. But you need 2 tanks here. The The rub is whether or not you can cleave these, and I'm 99% sure that you can cleave them. We're going to see long term, but short term, you might decide not to, and we'll see.
Before the pull, you should separate out your DPS into 2 roughly equal groups, preferably with a mix of melee and range classes in each. One group will be assigned primarily to Edgious Darkbane, and the other to Fiola Lightbane. Once the fight begins, 4 portals will spawn around the room, 2 light and 2 dark. Using these portals...
So these are the portals, right? And so when you are a light... Can I ask you guys to be a little quiet, Morgan? Can I ask you to be a little quiet for a bit? You mind? Sorry, just okay. So let's wait, hold on. Let me pull him up real quick. Not faction champions. There's just a lot of noise in the kitchen. She said it was totally fine. All right. Okay, so there are 2 debuffs in this, or buffs in this fight, and when you right click the light orb, you get a light buff, and when you right click the shadow orb, you get the shadow buff, and it enables you to take damage or absorb damage depending on the buff that you've got. And so what you want to do is, depending on what's going on in the room or depending on what damage is about to be coming at you, you want to select a certain buff. You know what I mean? And so what you're going to find is a lot of people have a certain buff, something's going to happen, and they're not going to realize that they need to pick up the other buff in order to prevent the damage from happening to them, and they're going to fuck you super hard, and it's going to be really annoying. This is the fight that I think weak warriors are going to help with the most of any of these fights, and it might make it a lot easier than what I think is probably going to be coming, but we'll see.
Portals will give you a buff called either Light or Dark Essence, which does 2 things: absorbs all damage of the same type, and increases your damage done to the Valkyr of the opposite type.
So if you've got the light buff, you absorb damage from the light, and you increase damage to the dark. So that's what Adis is, and then the other one is the light one. Now what you want to do is cleave them together because they share a health pool, so you're doing extra damage because you're doing damage to both. It's like dealing twice.
So at the start of the fight, everyone should click the portal of the opposite type of the Valkyr they're assigned to. Light portal for Darkbane and Dark portal for Lightbane. Healers should click a portal at the start as well, but the color doesn't really matter. Periodically throughout the fight, several small light and dark orbs will appear at the edges of the room and begin to float around. These will explode when touched and deal a moderate amount of the appropriate...
Okay, so these things, it's kind of like Pong. They just spawn orbs and they just go ding, 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 and they just bounce off the walls here.
Damage type.
And if you're light, you can absorb the light one, and if you're dark, you can absorb the
same
dark
essence
one.
as the orbs. So when they spawn, everyone should quickly absorb
And
any
it powers
nearby
you up.
same-color orbs.
You do more
Aside from
damage
keeping those orbs
when
from
you
hitting
hit
other players.
100.
Anytime light or dark damage is absorbed by your essence, you'll receive a stacking debuff called Powering Up. Once Powering Up reaches 100 stacks, you'll get a short-term buff that gives you 100% increased damage to the opposite type.
That's a lot of damage.
About every 45 seconds, one of the 2 Valkyr will use...
Now, the nice thing about powering up is that it doesn't matter what your stack is at. Like, let's say you absorbed like 20 light orbs. If you go click the dark orb, you've got 20 stacks of the dark orb powering up. It doesn't like wipe your things, so you can be stacking them over time.
Use one of 2 random special abilities, one of which is Twins Pack. This is a powerful heal that will restore a very large amount of HP to both Valkyr if successfully cast. It needs to be interrupted quickly, but in order to do that, you'll have to break through a damage shield that the twin casting the spell will put up beforehand. All ranged DPS who aren't currently attacking that twin should change...
Yeah, this is very likely not going to be the strategy that we all use by having them separate, but we'll see. This is, the first set of bosses back in the day. It is what it is. Plus 50 on Iron Council with double rune stack is insane. Imagine 100%. Yeah.
Their essence and switch targets until the shield is broken. Once the shield is down and the heal is interrupted, they can move back to their assigned target.
So notice
The
everybody's
second
like
special ability will be
getting
either
a
a light
color,
or dark
getting a
vortex,
thing.
depending on which twin is casting it. This is a raid-wide AoE that deals several pulses of the appropriate damage type. Everyone who is currently using
Okay, so one of them will cast a vortex, and if you've got the light essence buff, you're gonna get blown the fuck up. So you need to click the dark so that you absorb dark damage and don't take all of it. You know what I mean? This fight, we'll see what happens here, but you're incentivized to stand by the orb because then you can just right click it as soon as it happens. Melee might have to move back and forth. We'll see.
using the opposite essence will need to change quickly to absorb the
So
damage.
now they're dark.
Note that this will increase
the vortex
your
is gonna
powering
go
up
out.
stacks,
There it
so
goes.
DPS who are close to hitting 100 stacks and need to change essence may want to consider moving over to the other twin temporarily.
And you're getting
Otherwise,
powered up
just change
stacks,
back when the AoE finishes.
which is dope.
Note that the twins have a shared health pool. Any damage done to one will be taken by both.
Here comes more orbs.
The reason we spread the raid out between light and dark essence isn't specifically to split DPS, but to make sure there's enough of each to absorb all of the orbs that come out and keep from having the entire raid switching essence at the same time
Hit
for a
opposing
vortex or
orb
twin
equals
stack.
take AoE damage. Yeah.
It's also
You want to
important to note
avoid
that the
the
twins can absorb
other
orbs
orbs,
and will
which are
gain the
goofy.
damage buff if they absorb enough of them. This is why we have the raid relatively spread around the room to make sure
It's gonna be pretty toxic. Like some people are. Does the when the orb gets touched, does it power up everyone in a small radius around it, or does only one person get it? Because I could see someone be like, "It's my turn to parse this week, and I'm gonna zoom and get everyone in the whole arena, or just people around it." Because it's like I'm the one that's gonna be soaking all these orbs this week, and fuck you guys. You know what I mean? I could totally see that happening. But I guess if it's a small splash, then it's probably fine. It comes a little okay.
sure all of the orbs get picked up before they get to one of the Valkyr.
This fight is getting all-star points. The only fight that's not is faction champs. Everything else is going to be normal. Okay, so they got light essence. Everyone's light. They're getting
In this
power
kill,
up
we have
stacks
the
as it
twins
goes
positioned
out. And they're
roughly
fine.
evenly between the two portals on either side. If you prefer, you can tank them near a portal of the same color. This will make it easy for melee and tanks to change colors quickly if needed, but they'll have a longer run to get to the other portal and change back. We found it simpler to
Here
keep
comes
them in a
more
more
orbs.
central location. Ultimately,
They
the
kinda
positioning
just
doesn't matter as
hoovered up
much as
all of
simply
them.
understanding the mechanics of the encounter and how to deal with them. Once you've got it all figured out, it's just a matter of execution.
Seems like a pretty easy fight, so long as everybody understands
It's also
the light
worth
and dark
mentioning
side.
that the light and dark damage is affected by resistances. Dark abilities deal shadow damage, and light abilities deal fire damage. Most of the dark and light damage should be getting absorbed by players using the proper essences, but accidents can happen, and shadow or fire resistance buffs and auras can help create a little extra margin for error.
Shadow and fire resistance buff. Easy. It seems like they're doing very low damage. This is the fight that I'm looking forward to the most, personally. It's the most mechanically interesting. The most movement. Blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't look very hard to me. They're doing a light vortex, so everyone's got light. They're getting stacks of powering up. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this video. As always, if you'd like
So
more
fun.
information on this or any other encounter, check the Project Marmot forums at tankspot.com. If you're watching this
Alright.
on YouTube, just follow the link
Crash
in the
what's
movie
up?
details.
So this
Good luck.
is Valkyr, the twin Valks. It's definitely one of those fights that once you've got it down, it'll be super easy to recreate. Seems like there's not a ton of RNG. And this is also probably one of those fights that you're going to see a lot of strategy adjustments over the course of the phase. And you'll very likely just cleave the fuck out of them. Group will take one color first. Tanks move the boss to the opposite color portal. Group stay stacked. Hunter soak opposite orb color. DPS groups stay stacked, and everyone will get the DPS groups. Yeah, okay. 6 stars area on the orbs. Okay, good to know. All right, so that's Twin Valks. And just like that, we're almost done. At the end of this fight, Once you've done the thing, Arthas appears. Spoilers. And the whole floor breaks and you fall underground into the underground. I'm sorry guys, spoilers. Are there any new heroic mechanics? I don't think so. Touch of light and touch of darkness, which is another thing where it's like random people get the touch of light or touch of dark and they have to click the other color in order to prevent a bunch of AoE damage going out. So you'll just have a huge weak aura in your face screaming, you gotta touch a thing, and you gotta swap essences, and that's all it is. Otherwise it's the same. Yeah, these are all the normal guides because the hard mode guides are like, oh, you know how to do all this, let's just talk about the heroic stuff. And it was getting to the point where I was preferring that they were talking about all the mechanics instead of just some of them. So, all right. Now we will get into the final Anub'arak. Heroic Anub'arak 10 hard. Where is it? Tankspot Anub'arak. Tankspot's Guide to Colosseum Anub'arak.
Hi, this is Lore from Tankspot, and welcome back to the Trial of the Crusader Raid Guide. This video will be discussing our strategy for Anub'arak, the final boss of the Crusaders Colosseum raid instance.
Okay, so Anub'arak, if you guys saw my tips video, there's the block set thing that's coming. Hope if you're a prot warrior or a prot paladin, you've been working on it. We don't know yet how that's going to play out. And so I hope that all of that work that we've all been doing pays off. But we'll see. It's impossible to know. I've got a loose understanding of this fight. I don't know it very in depth, so it's all going to be new to me walking through this. And if I get anything wrong, please let me know. I'm learning this along with you guys. I've never done TOC. I've never done Ice Crown, so it's all high flow. Thank you for the tier 1. It's all new. But as far as I understand,
my wife. Help.
This fight's not really that hard. It just requires a little bit of individual responsibility in the underground phase, and that's it. So here we go.
The Anub'arak encounter is split into 3 phases. Phase 1 begins at the pool with Anub'arak on the surface. A few seconds in, he'll spawn 2 Crypt Fiend adds, which should each have their own designated tank. These don't do too much damage on their own, but when in close proximity to another Crypt Fiend, they gain a buff that significantly increases their damage output. However, they don't have a terribly large health pool, so we simply had ranged DPS split off temporarily to burn them down while melee stayed on the boss. He'll spawn 2 waves of these for every surface phase, so they do need to be killed fairly quickly or you risk your tanks getting overwhelmed.
So he spawns 4 burrowers every time he's standing on the ground, 2 at a time over time. And then once he submerges, blah, blah, blah.
Notice the blue patches appearing on the ground. This is permafrost, one of the most important mechanics for Phase 1 and 2. It's created by killing the blue orbs floating above. In Phase 1, the Crypt Fiend adds will...
So there are blue floating snowballs that just... And it's very important that you don't kill them on top of each other. They need to be killed in certain spots so as to spread around the room for what's to come in Phase 2.
Will occasionally try to burrow underground. If they're successful, they'll resurface shortly afterward, usually in line with either the next wave of adds or the beginning of Phase 2.
And you want to tank the burrowers on top of this. So imagine the frozen ground. You know how you can't dig in frozen ground because it's frozen? That's what this is. The ground is frozen, so they can't dig to go down. They're stuck up top.
However, if a
Jerry Springer.
Crypt Fiend attempting to burrow is standing on a patch of permafrost, the ability will fail, so they need to be kept on top of permafrost as much as possible. The blue orbs only have 9,000 health, so they can and should be brought down quickly and regularly. Note that the permafrost also slows your movement speed by 80%, but we didn't find that to be particularly troublesome.
So they're doing the 3 tank strat. We're very likely going to be doing the 2 tank strat. We'll see.
About a minute and a half into the fight, Anub'arak will burrow underground to begin Phase 2.
So they're finishing off the burrower.
Members around underground and shooting.
And so then he does this thing, right, where it's like the little the popcorn, and he will chase people around.
spikes up through the floor as he moves. These deal
And there's
about
the spikes.
3,000 damage and knock.
So then if you see what happened, these frozen spikes, somebody kited him through the permafrost. He couldn't burrow his spikes through the ice because it's too hard, and he gets stunned.
Knock anyone hit up into the air a short distance. On top of that, if he reaches his target, he'll impale them for around 20,000 damage and knock them very high into the air, enough to take a good chunk of fall damage.
Boom.
However, if he attempts to launch his spikes through permafrost, he'll be stunned momentarily and pick a new target. This also destroys the patch of permafrost, so it's important to keep killing these somewhat regularly during Phase 2.
This is normal.
As he's chasing people around, several non-elite scarabs will spawn around the room. These have a little over 100,000 health, and although they don't do very much melee damage, they can apply a fairly potent damage over time effect. This effect stacks, so it's best to just have your DPS burn them down as they spawn and not worry too much about tanking them.
So there is a strategy, and what Basher's alluding to is, like, a lot of the time you're going to find that over time he speeds up when he's underground. But what you want to do is, like, you don't want to kite him directly to a patch of permafrost. You want to kite him kind of in like a circle formation until he gets super fast, and then you kite him into the thing, and then he's stunned, and then it resets, and then you do it again. Because this phase only lasts so long, but you only have so many permafrost patches. So if you're just like, bing, 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 permafrost, 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 then you're out all of a sudden, and he's still going to be running around underground, fucking you up. So not a circle necessarily, Sherkon, but like in an arc. So it's like let's say the permafrost is here and you're here. Rather than just going like this and then he just goes like this, you can go like this and he'll go like this, and then you run in and then he does that type of thing, right? So it's like you want to prevent him from hitting it right away. Just like kite him as long as you can until he finally hits the permafrost. This will be something that people pick up pretty quickly, I imagine. Rocket boots are great here.
After about a minute, he'll resurface and begin Phase 1 again. He doesn't reset aggro, so he should go right back to the main tank at this point. However, both the tank and the raid will need to be mindful of how the boss is positioned, as Anub'arak has a powerful frontal cone AoE attack that deals a heavy amount of damage to anyone caught in.
I love these buff bars. Like, there's so much information here. It's just hilarious. Does anybody remember what the buff? Yeah, okay.
In front of him.
I don't know.
Not only does the tank need to point him away from the raid quickly, but the rest of the raid needs to be sure to move
lot
out
of
from
info.
in front of him as well. The majority of the fight is spent alternating between the surface and burrow phases. Making the most of the time he spends on the surface is crucial, as you'll only be able to go through 3 or 4 rotations before you risk running into his 10-minute enrage timer. To help maximize the amount of time spent DPSing Anub'arak, you can off-tank one or both Crypt Fiends from the second wave and wait to finish them off until the boss submerges. If you do need to have melee DPS help out on the first wave of adds, at the very least you'll want to let classes with long ramp-up times on their DPS rotations, such as Feral Druids or Retribution Paladins, stay on the boss full-time. It's important to note that Anub'arak hits very hard, around 20 to 25,000 damage per swing on a decently geared main tank. On top of that, while he's on the surface, he can hit up to 3 random raid members with an 18-second damage over time effect called Penetrating Cold. On the 25-man normal mode, this does 3,500 frost damage every 3 seconds for the duration. This is, of course, in addition to the damage that the 2 off-tanks will be taking from the Crypt Fiends, so healers will need to stay on their toes during the surface phases. Fortunately, healing is much lighter once Anub'arak is underground, so you can and should use that time to regen as much as possible.
If in the submerge phase you burn too many things too quickly, you might find yourself shit out of luck and you're just going to get fucked because he's just going to spike. So having people understand the submerge phase is going to be really important. I think that this is very likely too tankable. I can't know for sure, but that's my estimation. One thing you could consider is that if you have a Fury Warrior, have the Fury Warrior go prop for this fight. Do that. maybe the DK doesn't tank. Maybe the prop pally tanks the boss and the Fury Warrior tanks things, or you know, whatever. Pharaoh could tank the boss. There's a ton of different options. Don't you tank that? Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. 2 tank, 3 heals. Well, we'll see. What is Fury Warrior? That's a good question, Sarth.
Need your mana for Phase 3. Also note that some early guides have mentioned that you could avoid the burrow phase entirely by keeping Anub'arak on top of large patches of permafrost. Although this was possible on the public test realm.
If you kill the permafrost in bad spots, you're gonna have a bad time. You need to kill them in good spots. If they're all in the back of the room, there's not gonna be enough room to kite them, and they need to be kind of spread out so that you can go from one to another to another to another. Yeah, and a DK can grip them, so that can help pull them into a spot that you want, because they kind of just drift around the room like idiots.
Anub'arak can burrow through them on live servers. However, the burrow phases are much more relaxed than they were during public testing, so going through Phase 2 isn't as big of a deal, and as I mentioned, provides some valuable regen time. You may have also noticed that I'm spending a large amount of time on top of the permafrost during the burrow phases in this video. This is because we were unsure of the mechanics of his impale ability, and we're acting under the impression that it could be used randomly at any time on anyone who wasn't standing on permafrost. Since he'll only try to use that ability if he reaches the player he's chasing, this is unnecessary and just means I'm running around a lot slower than I need.
So he's at 54%. When does Phase 3 start? This is also going to be one of those fights for speed running that if you can skip a submerge phase, you gain a ton of time. So your DPS is going to be very important. I wonder if he's got dots and he submerges, if he'll finish the submerge phase or if he'll come back up if he triggers at the thing. That's true, Sarth. We'll see. Whether or not we speedrun to kill times then, whatever. Parsing. Like it's one of those things where if he has an extra submerge phase, your parse is screwed. You know what I mean? Because your in combat time is too long. Excuse me. Yeah, Danielle, that's a possibility. We do not know when Phase 3 is. We do not know. They did just take the PTR down, which could signal that there's some stuff coming, but we don't know. Don't know. It's all speculation. Oh, all right. PTR was up, yeah, but it was just for the phase.
Once Anub'arak reaches 30% health, he'll begin phase 3
all right, here we go.
by activating
30%.
an ability called Leeching Swarm.
Here we go.
This is a zone-wide aura that causes each player to take damage equal to 10% of their current health every second. You'll need very strong AoE healing to keep everyone alive here, but it's important to recognize that the amount of damage taken depends on how much health a player currently has and not the size of their health pool. The less health you have, the less damage you take. You may be able to tell from my raid frames in the upper left corner that the healers aren't topping everyone off, they're just keeping everyone but the main tank at about 50%. By doing so, they actually reduce the amount of damage the raid is taking and keep themselves from being overwhelmed. Once Phase 3 has begun, Anub'arak...
So this thing is called... Let's see, where is it? Leeching Swarm. This is the, like, signature ability of the fight that people freak out about, but they don't need to. I just need to find what it... Surprise 5th encounter. Leeching Swarm. At 30%, he releases a swarm of insects that attack the caster's enemies. They leech 10% of each target's current... not maximum HP every second. So every second you take 10% of your current healing, current health. But if let's say you have 50,000 health, then you're at on normal it's 10, heroic it's 30. Okay. Well, still, regardless, it's 30%. So you take less damage every tick that happens to you, right? So if you have 20k HP, you'll take 30%, and then you're down to what? Maths. 12k? I can't. 14k. After 14k, dude, that was awful. After 14k, 30% of that, and you take a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little less, until, like, you know, you're not really taking all that much damage. which isn't super deadly. What it can be deadly for is your tank, who's actually getting chunked every time, and he needs to be healed because he's taking hits from Anub'arak.
Will no longer burrow underground and no more adds will spawn. The fight becomes a DPS and survival race at this point. You need to kill him before your healers run out of mana. Like with the Phase 2 transitions, you can temporarily ignore Crypt Fiends to push him into Phase 3, but they should be killed off immediately after.
I have a very strong feeling that he's gonna fall the fuck over. You tell a raid to do 30% of a boss's HP with nothing going on but pumping his dick off, and he's just gonna die. You know what I mean? This is not this. I don't think this is gonna be a hard fight. It's gonna be pretty easy. It's like Yogg Phase 3 without the ads running around and the shadow beacon and all of that stuff.
Afterward to lighten the load on the healers. Once everyone's attention is on the boss, use any available cooldowns, including Bloodlust or Heroism, to bring him down quickly.
The hardest part is biting cold and tank Gibbs.
Although the fight is relatively simple, Anub'arak is a fair step up in difficulty from the previous bosses in the instance and makes a pretty good lead-in to the much harder heroic mode bosses. As always, you can find more information on Anub'arak or any other encounter by visiting the Project Marmot forums at tankspot.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, just follow the link in the movie details. Thanks for watching, and good luck!
Alright guys, that's Togc. Pretty chill. Love you too, Sarth. Probably not the most difficult raid we've ever done. Ulduar will be a lot harder than what we experienced, and we're all really going to be waiting for ICC. Now, the question is, and this is something that I really hope Blizzard considers, is if they release Ruby Sanctum along with Phase 3. And you're going to say, wait, what? That came out after Lich King. For me personally, I don't think that it makes sense for them to drop more gear after the Lich King is dead. I think that if you release Ruby Sanctum and drop the eye level of the gear to 258, which is what Heroic is, then you will find that this phase isn't as bad as we're all worried about, because Hallion's kind of a cool fight, and there's some cool loot in there. And you'll be able to have a bit more of a, yes, it would be 258, which is fine. No one really gives a fuck about 284 gear after the Lich King dies, right? You're not going to be like, oh, I have to consider that I'm going to get a Hallion trinket and blah blah blah. It'll change a bit of the gearing situations, and that's fine, but it's definitely one of those things that, like, no one's going to be like, no, I wanted my really OP Hallion trinket. You know what I mean? So yeah. Blizzard, please consider that. I really think this is just my musings, and someone said it in my chat, like, in Phase 1, and I was like, that's genius, and I've been espousing it ever since. I really think that that's a good idea. It will change, like, what is good going in ICC, which could be cool. There's some really cool gear from Hallion that could be useful again. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out for this. It was a lot of fun. I have a 10-man in about half an hour that I'm going to be going to. I might actually turn the stream off and just upload this to YouTube for the morning. This is something that I've been doing. I did for Ulduar, and I'll do for ICC as well in a couple different videos, but I really like doing this. It's a lot of fun getting out here and talking to you guys and getting your experience of these raids. And I've never done these, so it's nice to get feedback from you guys. Do you still have to be streaming to do hardcore? No, you don't, Baird. What if they did that while also removing 30% buff later on in ICC? Well, I don't think the 30% buff is a problem because it's disableable, right? Over time. So it's one of those things that's like, it's fine that the buff exists because you can turn it off. So we'll see. I mean, they're willing to do some stuff. All right, let's look at Hallie and stuff real quick. 25 heroic. So there's this feet and wrists. So there's some really good stuff. Cloak of Burning Dusk. That seems really, really good. Turn some music on. There's... Let me do this. There's... these trinkets are all, like, super juiced. Haste and equip your damaging spells have a chance to grant extra spell power. Spell power, and for the next 15 seconds on use, each time you direct heal a target, it causes you to create a heal... Causes the target of your heal to heal themselves and friends with them. So it's a splashing heal around them, which would be cool. Petrified Ivy Scale, which is a tank trinket, who cares? And then Sharpened Twilight Scale, which is armor pen. So maybe we'll see some... maybe we'll see some ARP. Like Warrior, it might use Warriors a little bit. Like this Scotty J's idea of it coming out at the same time as Lich King, but having to kill Lich King to open it. I don't like that idea because that's too much content for that phase and not enough for this phase, personally. But, you know, whatever. I think that's just like loading up too much at the end. Free rewards at the end of Ruby Sanctum are insane. Yeah. There's really good boots for the plate and mail people. There's a waist. There's a bunch of shit. And then there's more gear in the non-heroic version. Trinkets and rings. So we'll see. Are trinkets best for everybody? Yeah, but who's it best more for is the question. The concentrate from Howling is insane. Yeah.